24, and we are here to discuss the mental health issues and concerns of the indigenous population. In Canada, indigenous population have faced much historical trauma due to colonization, cultural suppression, and historical oppression. Research has shown in Canada that there is a significant disparity in the health of indigenous people compared to non-indigenous. So according to the WHO, or World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make contributions to his or her community. Indigenous people in Canada. The term Indigenous people refers to First Nation, Métis, and Inuit. These are the original inhabitants of the land now is called Canada. In 2011, more than 1.4 million people in Canada identified as indigenous, though severely threatened and in certain cases extinguished by the colonial forces. Indigenous culture, language, and social system have shaped the development of Canada and continue to grow and thrive despite extreme diversity. There are three categories of indigenous people in Canada. The first one is Inuit, Métis, and First Nation. The Inuit primarily inhabit the northern regions of Canada. Their homeland, known as Inuit Nunangat, includes much of the land, water, and ice contained in Arctic region. The next one is Métis. Métis people are of mixed European and indigenous ancestry and live mostly in the Prairie provinces and Ontario, but also in other parts of the country. And the last one is the First Nation. The First Nation peoples were the original and inhabitants of the land that is now Canada, often occupying territories such as south of the Arctic. So that's all for the introduction and the definition of mental health. So my partner will discuss about the determinants of mental health among indigenous population.
Hi, my name is Prema. I'm going to discuss about the determinants of mental health among indigenous population. And they are income and social status, education, employment, social support network, social environment, physical environment, coping skills, healthy child development, biology and genetic endowment, gender and culture. When we talk about income and social status, mental health is influenced by many factors including life experience, workplace or other environments, and the social and economic conditions that shape their lives. These social and economic conditions are called the social determinants of health and are some of the most important factors that impact on mental and physical health. Researchers shows that the social determinants can be more important than healthcare or lifestyle choices in influencing health. And when it comes to mental health, three social determinants are particularly significant. One, freedom from discrimination and violence, social inclusion, and access to economic resource. Second, the education. When we talk about the education, educational attainment is a strong determinant of an individual's health and well-being across the lifespan. Education is associated with health literacy, health awareness, and self-care, all of which can contribute to improved health and well-being. And when we talk about employment, as social, economic, and educational status strongly associated with better health, it should be noted that persons with serious mental disorders face high rates of unemployment and poverty. Now I'd like to talk to you regarding residential schooling. When it comes to dealing with mental health of indigenous people, the multi-generational effects of residential school and colonization on families and communities needs to be a key area of awareness. Parents who attended residential school were unable to form healthy emotional bonds or offer nurturing environments to their children. Being separated from their own families at a young age 1979 to 1973, the Canadian government mandated church-run boarding schools to provide education for Aboriginal children. Over 100,000 children were taken from their homes and subjected to an institutional regime that Aboriginal parents were not necessarily seen as unacceptable parents, but as incapable of educating and passing on proper European values to their children. To continue with this topic, one of my groupmates will talk about cultural continuity.
Hi everyone, my name is Ming Li. I'm going to talking about cultural continuity. Cultural continuity played an important role in shaping positive health and wellness of outcomes for indigenous population. It is one of the less well-known factors that can have an impact on the indigenous population mental health of our community. There are certain social conditions which can help create a positive and healthy environment for both the community and as individual. So each of these 6 factors prove to be predictive of suicide rate in indigenous communities. When grouping these characteristics together on index, there was a decreased rate of suicide when there was a strong sense of community control. Also, communities that exhibited active engagement in community practices experience lower young suicide rate compared to communities that did not. In other words, cultural discontinuity may lead to loss of identity and autonomy, which can cause mental distress. If the community could control over local institutions and grounded in a collective sense of history and culture, are better able to shield vulnerable people from identity crisis that can lead to psychological distress and suicide. So, community takes several steps to preserve their cultural past and control their civic lives in order to have fewer suicides. Indigenous populations suffer from a wide range of health and social problems, which leads them to experience a higher rate of mental health problems than the general population. Cultural continuity shows promise in providing some of the community-wide protective factors that can improve mental health outcomes. Okay. So next, my groupmates will discuss the alcohol and the substance abuse.
Hello everyone, my name is Cheryl May. I will be discussing alcohol and substance abuse. Let's take a look at the history of alcoholism in Aboriginal communities in Ontario. It is important to know how and where these problems started in our community so that we can understand and focus our thoughts and behaviors around alcoholism to assist in healing individuals and communities. Before European people arrived in Canada, Aboriginal peoples did not have a brewing tradition and had no experience with alcohol. As the fur trade developed, alcohol came to be used as a gift item as well as an item of trade at trading posts. Alcohol was used as an inducement to participate, as a medium of exchange, and as a standard of competitive access. According to a survey, it shows that around 75% of all residents feel alcohol use is a problem in their community. 33% indicate that it is a problem in their own family. 25% say that they have a personal problem with alcohol. Alcohol is a growing problem within the community, with alcoholism being one of the leading causes of death for Indigenous people. Research shows that Indigenous men in particular avoid the use of medical services to help them cope with their depressive symptoms. Instead, they resort to unhealthy coping strategies such as heavy drinking. National Native Alcohol and Drug Abuse Program is a program that was established to assist First Nations and Inuit community members in instituting and operating programs which aims to reduce the level of alcohol drug and solvent abuse among target groups on reserves. This program also emphasizes prevention and treatment, training, research, and development. The next topic is about depression. Depression is a common and life-changing mental illness in the Canadian population. This is especially true for First Nations people who experience major depression at twice the national average. The colonization and forced assimilation of Aboriginal peoples in Canada are considered to be the root causes of the elevated levels of social and mental distress found in many Aboriginal communities today. Many Aboriginal children were separated from their parents and placed into residential schools where they were often subjected to multiple forms of abuse such as physical, psychological, sexual, and spiritual abuse. The residential schools experience contributes to increased risk of depression of Aboriginal peoples in Canada. Health impacts of depression: negative impact on physical health, increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes, increased morbidity and mortality rates of coronary diseases, and difficulty in self-care. My group mate will be discussing Indigenous mental health and healing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Binmol. Let us discuss about the Indigenous mental health and healing. The policies of forced assimilation had profound effect in Aboriginal peoples at every level of experience, from individual identity and mental health to the structure and integrity of families, communities, bands, and nations. The residential school experience has had enduring psychological, social, and economic effects on survivors. So, for the Indigenous mental health and healing, require a holistic approach. Here is a model of Indigenous mental health and healing. According to this model, Indigenous mental health and healing is dependent on 4 factors like community, interdependence, cultural identity, and holistic approach. Community. Family and community have a key role in helping individuals regain their sense of balance. Effective treatment involve identifying the strength of families and communities and developing programs that build on these strengths. Interdependence. Interdependence is mutual dependence between things. In the Aboriginal worldview, they are connected to everything and everyone around them, be it air, water, rocks, tree, animals, insects, human, and so forth. And they are bound by their culture and tradition. Cultural identity. Any approach to mental health promotion with Aboriginal people must consider the use of tradition to assert cultural identity. The key to healing following the experience of residential school abuse and its intergenerational effects lies in the area of reclaiming identity. Reclaiming Aboriginal identity means recovering traditional values, beliefs, philosophies, ideologies, and approaches and adapting them to the needs of today. Holistic approach. Aboriginal people are likely to have a more holistic view of mental wellness, which means as a state of balance with family, community, and the larger environment. It includes physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. As described in the preceding section, Indigenous mental health has some distinct features. They are: Aboriginal people have a holistic view of mental wellness. Wellness means being in a state of balance with family, community, and the larger environment. Culture and spirituality are the framework of treatment developed by the First Nation and Inuit communities. Family and community have a key role in helping individuals regain their sense of balance. Effective treatment involves identifying the strength of families and communities and developing programs that build on these strengths. You can't do it for us, you can only do it with us. They say that means we cannot do anything to them without their help. They come up with their own solution for health challenges. Joint seeing. In response to the underutilization of health services by the indigenous population, healthcare professionals have moved towards more holistic, culturally sensitive approaches and have blended Western healthcare practices with traditional Aboriginal healing practices. Two-eyed seeing refers to learning to see from one eye with the strength of indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing, and from the other eye with the strength of Western knowledge and ways of knowing. It incorporates sweat ceremonies to cleanse toxins from the mind, body, and spirit. Smudging. the burning of sacred herbs in a small bowl to purify people and places, the use of ceremonial drums and songs as a way to connect with the Creator and Spirit. Sharing circle, a healing method in which all participants, include the elders, are viewed as equal. Traditional healers use a wide range of activities, from physical cues using herbal medicines and other remedies to the promotion of psychological and spiritual healing using ceremony and elders' teaching. Now, my next groupmate will discuss about the mental services of the Aboriginal people.
I'm Catherine, and I'm going to discuss mental health services for Indigenous people, implication to service providers, and the role of community health nurse in providing care to this group. Location and accessibility are the major factors that concern Indigenous group when it comes to mental health and services. A large percentage of this group have expressed that their healthcare needs are unmet because of the availability and cost of healthcare services that are not covered by insurance. The Government of Canada continuously provide funding for mental health programs and services among the Aboriginal people. These programs are coordinated through community health providers and the Aboriginal organizations like Aboriginal Healing Foundation because they are greatly committed to provide support among individuals, families in caring for mentally ill loved ones. Here are the programs and services funded by the government. First is Brighter Future and Building Healthy Communities, National Aboriginal Youth Suicide Prevention Strategy, National Native Alcohol and Drug Abuse Program, the Non-Insured Health Benefits, Indian Residential School Mental Health Support Program, and the Jordan's Principles. There are also local and provincial services for Aboriginal people, and these are Aboriginal Child and Family Services, Aboriginal Health Access Centers, and Community Health Centers and Nursing Stations, Indigenous Friendship Centers, and Métis Nation of Ontario. There is also one organization for women, which is the Ontario Native Women Association. In addition, there are crisis hotline and crisis mobile team are available 24/7, provide education and awareness, provide accommodation and accessibility, provide support for caregivers and families, and they should coordinate with the association if an individual in the community needs support for any mental health problems. Those in rural and isolated community, assessment might be done through video conference. This is telemental and psychiatric health. And the person must be at the health centers, hospital, or any agency that has the right equipment to do the video calling. The role of nurses in Aboriginal settings, particularly on reserve, was seen as critically important because these nurses may be the only constant primary care provider. So here are the roles of community health nurses: provide culturally competent, safe care while getting to know clients and their communities. Another one is they acting as an advocate for and or navigator on health and social determinants of health issues for clients, and implementing and adhering to a holistic model of healthcare. What are the implications for service providers? Better understanding of how Indigenous people view mental health and wellness. A holistic and culturally approach must be considered at all times. Consider all the barriers or factors that must be overcome in order to contribute to the mental well-being of the Indigenous society, like accessibility, locations, and cost. Partnership between different service providers, which includes Aboriginal organization, would also be beneficial.
So that's all for our presentation about mental health issues and concerns of the Indigenous population in Canada. I hope it gives you information, and thank you for watching.